All right, as far as I know, I am taping, so good afternoon. It is Monday, November 7th, and like I said, we're going to start. I sent out this email this morning, and as it says in here, I got emails from people saying that there was some confusion as to what is due and when, so we're going to talk about that first in just a moment. Afterwards, we're going to go back and talk about a few more things with React. And I want to go back and look at that counter program that we did and make sure that you understand it both as a class component and as a functional component. All right. I did attach a Word document that I don't want to spend any time on, but just show that to you. And after that, we're going to go in and start building our React weather app. All right, we're going to use an external API in order to do that. All right, tomorrow, if for some reason we don't finish that weather app today, and I believe we will, but if we don't, we'll finish it tomorrow, and then we're going to start on a different one where we're going to do a little bit more complex app. It's going to be a React movie app. All right, and if we don't finish that tomorrow, then we'll just bleed into Wednesday. I had said originally Wednesday and Thursday would be lab days, but I tried to build that in just in case we needed a little bit more time. But Thursday, for sure, will be a lab day regardless. All right. And as it says on there, you should have already heard me say this. There are no classes on Friday. Rankin closes every year in honor of Veterans Day. All right. So let's talk about the homework. Now, I'm going to show you this. Maybe it's something I shouldn't show, but I'm going to anyway. And that is when you look here, and I don't even know how well this shows on the screen, but this is my view of inside Rankin. So what you can see in here, starting from the beginning, everybody has got the JavaScript, CSS review. Everybody did the 2 MySQL tests, etc. And then I've got this MongoDB REST API homework 1 and 2. So let's look at those right away. So here was the first one. Now, if for some reason, all right, you go, hey, I turned that in and I don't have a grade, just let me know. All right. If nothing else, just send me an email, go back out to your GitHub repo and send me an email and say, hey, I did this, because it'll be date stamped. All right. And say, I did this and I turned it in when it was due. It's over on my GitHub repo at so-and-so. Just let me know and I'll go out and grade it. It's not a problem. All right. So let's see. This was, like I said, this was the thing that was originally due 10/10, so like about a month ago. It says your job was to do anything and everything that did not work in the MongoDB products collection that we had done earlier, make it work. All right. And let's see. That was worth 50 points. All right. Hopefully that makes at least some sense. I mean, that was something from quite a while ago. And if you say, I'm not even sure what that was, then go back and take a look, because there should be a tape either on that day or the day before for it. All right. But, no one in this class is in failure or is in risk of failure right now. I think there might be 1 or 2 people who have B's and everybody else has an A. All right. So it's not like people are way, way, way behind. All right. So that was the first one. So let me get rid of that because I got a bunch of junk open here. This, which was due the next week, it says is your second MongoDB assignment. All right. It said to create that new movies app, make that movies collection in there, create the movie schema, etc. All right. And as it says, as you work through the assignment, copy everything you do to a text file. Just do the best you can do on that. All right. If for some reason you got the schema and all the other stuff done and you didn't actually build the app, turn in what you have. If you have done it already and you're like, I don't have any idea what you're talking about, let me know. All right. All right. As far as the rest of the stuff that's in here, let's see. I mean, this was a long time ago. I think everybody's got this one done. This was one of the first tests. And all I did was I went up there and I looked to see what stuff was, out there, still out there. This was that MongoDB practice exercise. All right, where we did that. It asked, basically it asked you to run a bunch of queries. I think either everyone has done that or just about everyone has done that. All right, so again, if you say, well, geez, these are really old, I did those, then good. All right. This was that Mongo test that we said, because we had problems getting stuff to work on here. So I put a hold on this. So this MongoDB Mongoose test number 1, don't worry about that one. All right. The only other one that should be in here was the one that was due yesterday. So let's very quickly, and I mean quickly, talk about that. You were supposed to complete the JavaScript calculator, and there were a bunch of screenshots on there. And then we went back in and we did it in React. And you were supposed to convert the BMI calculator over from JavaScript to React. All right. Then I'd asked you to do that React tic-tac-toe tutorial. And then finally, we did a very simple in class. We did a very simple JavaScript calculator. It sure wasn't a complete calculator. But then went back in and basically redid it as a React app. So again, what I'm looking for in these is, did you do it? And on these, we have done these in class. So I wanted you to personalize it, make it your own, make sure it worked, and have your own CSS in there. Because as you know, literally when I've been doing these, I've been doing almost no CSS on here. So for that one and for this one, that's what I was looking for. All right. So as it says in here, on Monday and Tuesday, we'll create 2 more projects. It says Wednesday and Thursday will both be labs. At least part of Wednesday will be lab. All right. Let's just see how we get, what we get to and what we get done today. All right. Now, John, you're the only one on right now. Any questions on any of that stuff? You probably have it all done.
No questions. Well, yeah, I do have the one question. So the to-do list, are we just not worrying about that either, or?
We're not worrying about it for right now. All right.
Okay.
Until I get it to work, there's no reason I'm going to ask you to do it.
Okay.
All right. And for various reasons, I did other things this weekend. All right. So that's everything that's on there. So let me go back again to the email that I sent out. So we did that. All right. As far as reviewing some React fundamentals and going over the counter program, it's not so much that I want to review fundamentals, but there's just a few things that I wanted to bring up to you. All right. And most of them are pretty simple, to be honest with you. All right. One thing about React, and you probably already know this, but when you are doing operations, when you are working with a document object model, it's one of the things that can be the slowest. Redrawing the DOM can be one of the slowest things there is in a website. It's one of the things that slows down, a website performance as much as anything else. Well, again, one of the things that React does, and one of the things that it's known for, is rather than rewriting the entire DOM, which has been done historically, it only rewrites the part of the DOM that is changed. All right. So it does a partial rewrite. And it does this because it doesn't update the DOM. It updates this virtual DOM, which is a copy of it. Then it goes and it basically updates the DOM, again, only updating what has changed. That's one of the reasons that this is as popular as it is. So it kind of goes like this. All right. So if you had something like a to-do list, rather than the traditional way, which would be to update everything, if you took the word virtual out of there to the DOM, rewriting everything, it just rewrites, as it shows here in blue, what has actually changed. All right. So as it says, the virtual DOM is the reason that React updates are faster. It's one of the reasons that React is as popular as it is. All right, let's see. You should by now understand that, and you should understand the concept of state. All right, state is what we've been using with our functional components. And again, I'm going to go back in just a moment and we're going to revisit that counter app. Why? Because I want to do it both as a class-based component and as a functional-based component, just so you can see, have them both, be able to compare and contrast the two. You don't have to key it in. It's not assigned. I'm just trying to be complete here because if you were to get a job as a MERN stack developer, all right, and you were to grab some legacy code, meaning some code that's been out there for a while, there's probably at least a pretty good chance that the code that you are going to be working with will be using class-based components. On the other hand, if you're creating new code or you are maintaining code that is fairly new, then there's a better chance you're going to be using functional-based components. We've talked about the differences between them. The fact that when you're using class-based, you're using props, and props are immutable, as opposed to when you're using functional-based, which use state, which is mutable. All right, and again, this is all stuff that we've talked about. But the only other thing that I wanted to say regarding that, this is the kind of thing that we're going to be looking at building today. Now, just for a second, just forget everything that's over here and look at, let me go back here. I think I found a different picture that I wanted to show you. There. This is traditionally, actually, if you look at this picture right here, this is what we have been doing. Now, our client and our server have been the same machine, and it will continue to be for a bit. But the point is this. The point is what we've been doing is we have been writing our own requests to our own server. We have been providing the response from our own server. So yes, we have been going through this HTTP request and response mechanism, but everything that we've been doing, all right, has been on our own machine. So we've been responsible for both ends. That's not typically how this is going to work. And what I mean by that, let me close a couple of these. We'll get to that in a minute. But what I mean by that is usually what's going to happen is someone else will have written an API where you can go out and request from an external API. So you're going out and you are requesting from a server, all right? You are requesting information. That information will be returned to you. Then on your end, all right, then on your end, you will be modifying that information to put it into a nice looking format. That's what we're going to do today. That's what we're going to do tomorrow. All right. But I do want you to understand though, and I, like I said, John, I think you do, but I just want to make sure everybody understands that what we're talking about right now is the ability to go out and get our information externally, as opposed to having to provide everything ourselves. All right. And again, if that doesn't make sense, please ask, but it probably you're like, well, duh. Yeah, that's good then. All right. All right. So very quickly then, let's go over and let's look at this counter program. Okay, and I think we already did it. I should have it in here someplace as a class-based component. All right. So unfortunately, you can see the mess that is this, but I'm just going to bring it up because I've got it. I know I've got it in here. So I just called it down up, but I'm going to show it as both a class-based component and I'm going to show it as a functional-based component right now. All right, so let's go into source, and really probably it's just app, and well, I guess I can look at this one too. All right, all I've got in my app CSS is this, and I didn't even have to display that. It probably would have been better off to just do like a text align center. It's probably not going to look that nice. But what you should get out of what is shown right here, right on your screen right now. This is not a large program, all right, less than 50 lines. That when you are creating a class-based component like this, and you know it's class-based because it says class app, whereas the other one that we'll look at in just a minute will say function app. All right. So two things about this. First of all, you have to import components as is shown on line 2. And the reason you have to import that is you want to be able, when you call super right here, this is calling the constructor of this. And every class-based app extends component itself. So we've got all that. So then when you come in here, this, as it says, is your constructor function. All right. This is very similar. It doesn't take the place of exactly, but this is very similar to where when we went into, and I'm going to remove this right away, but we went in and said something like, I don't know, like maybe state, set state equals use effect, use state. All right, and then we did something like that, maybe set it to 0 or whatever. That's when you're working on the functional side. We are not doing that. We are working on the class-based side. So you put a constructor in here. The constructor, as you can see, in this case at least, has no parameters. The first thing that constructor does is it calls the constructor of component. That's what the super line is. That should always be the first line that you put into a class-based React component. All right. And then we came in here and we did this. So with the this.state, all we're doing is we're basically saying that our count has no value to it. All right. Why? Because in here, we're going to be doing the increment and the decrement. So this is just the initialization. All right. So in our handle increment, when you are working with classes, in some ways at least, you'll notice that we use the word this all over the place, much more than we use the word this when we were working in functional-based components. And that's because functional-based components have access to some things that class-based components basically don't without the use of the word this. All right. So what are we doing here? Exactly what you think we'd be doing. And that is, for the increment, we're adding 1 to our counter. For the decrement, we're subtracting 1 or decrementing 1. All right. So the way that this is set up with the this.setState, all right, so the whole thing is this. All right. And the first parameter that we're passing in is this. That's basically what do you want it to do? And then this is a callback that basically says, okay, after we do that, what do you want done? We don't have to put anything there. All right. But again, it should make sense to everybody. All right. It should make sense to everybody exactly how this is working. Then when we come down to here, remember, when you use a class-based, you must have a render function. And that render has a return in it. So everything that's being rendered is here. Now, this is similar to what we saw as far as the way we set this up for a functional-based component. But again, note the word this that is in there. All right. But other than that, we did a handle increment and a handle decrement. We're going to look at this, like I said, in just a second or two. We're going to look at it as far as how you do it in a functional-based component. All right. And then regardless of whether you're using a function-based or whether you're using a class-based component, you will have to always export at the end, which is going to make it available when you import it in to the files that need it. All right. So if I grab all that stuff and I come back to here, okay, there's my down up class. So it's my class component. All right, so I'm right there. All right, and if I right mouse click, do my git bash here, and do my npm start. And like I said, yeah, I should have done a better job of actually formatting this, but it works. Now look, they're both incrementing. What does that mean? That means I screwed up and called increment twice. So let's go back and see if indeed that's the case. All right. Yep, notice they're both calling increment. So just change that to decrement. Save this. Let's refresh the page here. And now it should be decrementing, and it is. That was on me. And now it's incrementing. All right. So I'm not even going to ask because we did this before in class. So my hope is there's no questions. Again, if you have any, please ask. But I'm trying to be complete here. All right. And I want to make sure that, for instance, if in the program that we're going to start in just a couple minutes, if I said, okay, we're going to create this as a functional component, you're like, cool, we get it working. Now, I'd like you to recreate this as a class-based component that you could do that. All right. Okay, so let's look at the other example. Now, just so you're aware of this, if I just come in here, all I'm going to do here is I'm going to kill this. So I'm going to kill what's running on there. So that's gone. I can log out from here. I don't need this anymore. Come on, log out. I don't want that. All right. So I've got, like I said, that's done. Okay, this is something else. This is I think this was the movie thing, but I don't even remember. Okay. So let's go and look at the other one then. So this is the function based. So this is the same one, but it's function based. Now, just so you see this, didn't have to do this, but notice quite often when you start to build more complex React applications, what you end up doing is in your source folder, you make a folder called components. So I actually put in there my down up. All right, what do I mean? Well, you're going to see it all right now. So let me bring up my app and my app. So I'll bring both those up. And there's not much in there. But let's go to components and let's bring this up. All right, so we're going to take a look at all of these. So again, in here, all I have is text align center. All right, I think I mentioned this in class, but I'm going to say it again anyway. And that is, I'm going to recommend when you come in here, yours by default looks like this. All right, I just have done a lot of reading where people say that you can run into problems naming this and this the same thing with the same case. So they recommend always putting that in lowercase. I'm going to recommend that you do the same thing. Now, if you don't do that and your program still works, good for you, then it's fine. All right. So let's take a look at this. So this was the CSS. Again, not much stuff in there at all. So this was the actual component. All right. And again, what we're going to get into, not today probably, but quite soon, is there are different use things that you can put inside of there. Use state is the one that's used most often, but there's another one that's used fairly often also that's called use effect. All right, and we'll get into that, just not right now. All right, so before it was class down up, now it's function down up. All right, and you can see in here, okay, this is our count and this is our set count. And again, by now this should make sense to you. And it should also make sense. This says that when the program starts, the counter should be set to 0. Whereas if I set this to the empty string, and it really wouldn't hurt if I did, it just wouldn't have any value at all. All right. And then with our increment and our decrement, again, I'm trying to, for lack of better words, tie up some loose ends here. This doesn't have to be called handle increment and handle decrement. You could have called them anything you wanted to. You could have called them hello and goodbye. But, this is a handler that we're using for an on-click event. So to start it with handle is just kind of a natural thing to do. And again, if you don't agree with that, it's okay. But really, that's the way that you should be thinking of writing things. All right, this one's got a little bit better looking interface. But again, notice I put a bunch of divs in here. Now, I didn't do anything. I don't have a wrapper class that I put in my CSS or a button class in my CSS. But if I wanted to, I could. I don't have a header class in my CSS. Now, I could have really went nuts here. And as an example, for the buttons right there, we just gave them a class of button, but we could have brought in, for example, we could have brought in Bootstrap. And we could have made like maybe the increment button could have been, I don't know, green for success. And the decrement button could have been red for danger. I mean, to me, that's a little overkill, but we could do something like that. And again, what you should notice about this, as opposed to the last one we just looked at, is they are almost the same, except again, when you are working with a class-based component, you need this dot here and here and here. All right. When you are working with a class-based component. So when that is class right up there, we don't have that situation here. All right. So it's not anything that we have to worry about. All right. So when I come back, and this is what I wanted to show you, I'm not sure if this is going to run right now or not. And there's a part of me that actually hopes it doesn't. And I'm going to show you why in just a second. All right. So I'm back here under my down up function or my function based component. I'm going to right mouse click, choose git bash here. And I'm going to do my npm start. And I'm hoping it tells me that there's already something running on port 3000. And it did, it took it. Many times when you go in and you run this, it won't take it. You'll get a message that you've already got something running on port 3000. And I believe I mentioned this earlier. I believe I did. But if you do get that, you can put in this. npx space kill minus port space 3000. In fact, you can put anything that you've got running on any port. You can put any port number in there and it'll immediately stop it from running. Now, you be careful when you're doing that, all right? Because some of the stuff that's running might be operating system functions or whatever. And in the worst case, if you kill the wrong port, you're going to take yourself down, all right? Which probably isn't going to be what you want to do. But you'll notice that even if I do put this in right here, all right? And I'm going to close this. But if I come back into here, right there. All right, so if I come right back into here and I put that in, okay. It says process on port 3000 killed. So it's npx space kill minus port, no spaces in here, but a space before the kill and a space after the word port. All right. And hopefully you noticed already, but again, if I do one more npm start and bring this up, it'll start up on there, right there on port 3000. I made the buttons last time with a plus and a minus. Here I just got the decrement and I've got the increment. All right. There should not be anything at all that I just went over with you that doesn't make sense. All right. And again, you should hopefully have a comfort level with going back and forth between class-based components and functional-based components. It is possible to mix the two in the same application. fact, a lot of times what you'll find is if somebody starts to create an application, or maybe it's a legacy application, meaning it was created a while ago, they may have created some of the functionality in class-based components, but new functionality might go in as function-based components. All right, end of that sermon. Let's see, what else did we have in here? So we went over the homework. We went over some React fundamentals. We revisited the counter program. So very quickly, let's look at this. This was that Word document, and it's big. It's right here, and it's about 50 pages long. It is 50 pages long. And why am I even giving this to you? In a way, this document that's in here kind of symbolizes what this whole course is about, because it goes through pretty much the whole process of everything we're doing. Even though it's called Beginning, Node, and Express, there's a lot of stuff in here that relates to the entire MERN stack. All right, I'm not going to go through the document. We could spend the whole period just doing that. And in my opinion, good, bad, or indifferent, it wouldn't be worth our time to do that. We could, like I said, but I don't think it'd be worth our time to do that. All right, but you might want to take a look at this, especially if the day ever comes, all right, once you graduate, if you're interviewing for a job and it has anything to do with MERNStack. All right. Okay. So that is that. So let's start creating a new application then right now, because this is where we are. That we're going to build the React Weather app as a class right now, and we're going to use an external API. I will tell you before we get started, you'll be able to, boom, like that. You'll be able to go and get your API key that you're going to need for free, all right, from the site that we're about to go out to. The reason I'm telling you this is for what we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to be using something called, I think it's OMDBAPI.com. It's the open movie database that we're using. It's kind of a scaled down version of the Internet Movie Database, but it's pretty easy to work with. But I wanted to tell you that with that one, I went in and last Thursday, no, it was last Friday, all right, when we had our lab day, I went in and requested a key from them for that so I could start working on this. Well, I requested it at 2 o'clock, all right, and when I got home and did a few things, etc., excuse me, I looked and it was 9 o'clock and I hadn't gotten the key yet. So for that one, it says that if you don't get a key within an hour, you can email this guy. His name is Brian Fritz. I'm going to show you all this at the end of class today. But I emailed him, and then Saturday, this past Saturday, if you don't know it, we had an open house at Rankin. So I had to go in, and I went in at 7 o'clock. It didn't start till 8, but I went in at 7, and I looked at my email, and lo and behold, there was my key from Mr. Brian Fritz with a email of apology for having it taken so long. It was fine. The reason I'm telling you that is I'm going to show you what to do to get the key that we'll need tomorrow, but I'm going to show you that today. Hopefully what I just said made at least a little bit of sense. All right. So with that said, we're going to start the way we normally start this stuff. So again, you have your choice here. You can either, all right, let me close this down. All right, you can either come to your desktop and create a new folder that we're just going to call React Weather App. I don't think I have one called that, but if I do, I'll change it. Or you can just start. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a new folder. And I'm going to call it React-Weather-App. And I think I might have one with that name already. So I'm going to append a 2 on the end of mine. You don't have to do that unless you already have one called React-Weather-App. All right. So now I've got that empty folder right there. All right. And I'm going to open it up. And I'm going to right mouse click here and go to my Git Bash here. You've seen this quite a few times. All right. And I'm going to do my npx create react app Dot.
Mr. Scott,
Yes,
you did NPM.
thank you. It's NPX. You are correct. All right. So just to get it started, and you know as well as I do, that takes a little bit of time. All right. Not a lot, but a little bit. And you, by now, you should be familiar too with what this is doing. All right. It's building. You can see right now the package.json. We are going to go into that in just a bit. We are going to add another package to that later. All right. And we can go back and open it up later and just double check to make sure that everything indeed was added that was supposed to be added. All right, it's just about finished here. As soon as I get my happy hacking, there we go. So I'm going to clear this, okay? And I'm going to type in code space dot, which will open it up in Visual Studio Code. There we are. I'm going to keep that, just minimize it for now, but now I should be up and running in VS Code. You know the stuff that's in here. There's no surprises. All right, nothing I'm going to throw at you here that's going to be a surprise. I am going to go into source just because this is the way we typically do things. Now you have your choice. You can either put most of your code in here, your CSS code. You can put most of the CSS code for the app in here, or you can put it in here. All right, but that's, I always look at that stuff in index.css as being more global. All right. Or again, if we do come in here and we create a folder called components where we put in our own components, all right, we can also go and have a CSS file for each component. This is what we're going to be building towards. So for instance, if we've got a user interface that, let's say, has a text box on it and it has 2 buttons, we could literally have 3 different files. All right, one that was called, inputbox.js with its own CSS file, one called button1.css with its own, or .js with its own CSS file, and one called button2.js with its own CSS file. If I was going to go to that extreme, I probably would not have a button1.css and a button2.css, because the chances are pretty good they would look pretty similar to one another. All right, so I'd probably have a button1.js, a button2.js, and both of them would import a button.css type of thing. All right, but you know this already. We're not doing any testing, so we can get rid of our app test. We can get rid of our logo. We can get rid of our report vitals that's right here, and we can get rid of the setup tests. All right. And I do want you to understand something, and I mean everybody. I'm not picking on you, John, but I mean everybody. And that is, again, if you were to get a job as a React developer, all right, if you were to get a job, then you probably would not be removing this stuff that we're removing right now. We just, in the way we're teaching this, I mean, think about this. You had really, it sort of has worked out like this. You had about about 20 days of using Express and using Node. You had about 20 days of using MySQL. You had about 20 days of using MongoDB. And now we've got, really, it's 25, but we've got 25 days left after today that we can do the React stuff. All right, and we can try to put it all together. All right, so I'm going to remove this. Just right mouse click on it and choose delete. It says, are you sure? Let's see, app test. Yep. Logo. Yep. Yes. All right, so those are now gone. Nothing big there. We've looked at that before. And again, by now you should know that I got to go to my index file and I want to remove this thing here for Web Vitals because we've just removed it. Like that. and the call to report web vitals, it's down here. So all we did was we just cleaned that up. And again, by now, and we're going to talk about things like strict mode, just not right now, but you should realize that what we're telling it to do right here now is we are telling this that we want this thing to basically move. There we go. We want this to go ahead and call React DOM, and we want to basically take, and in this location right here, we want to inject all the code that's in there. And again, that should make sense to you by now. It really and truly should. All right. So I'm going to do a file, save all from here. We can close that, but I'm going to open this back up. All right. Why? Because I want to get back to my app.js file. And I want to do two things. Number one, I want to remove this because we're not using that anymore. And number two, just like we've been doing, in between my div here, I want to remove everything, okay? And let's do two more things. Number one, let's import into here. Geez Louise. Import into here, all right? I usually say React, comma, use state. Most of the time, you don't need to use the React part there like I put in, but so from React, all right. And, well, I goofed up something, so I think it was that parenthesis. Tell you what, let me redo this. I'm gonna bring it all back. There we go. All right, so I've got my import here, and we will put in React, comma, use state from React. All right, that should be everything. And again, my suggestion is that you make this a lowercase a. We are going to go out now. We are going to register for our own API key in just a moment. All right. But I will tell you, we're going to write most of this ourselves. As always, I'm not going to do any formatting. I am going to ask you to format it. This will be a little bit more work than the stuff we've been doing in the past, just so you know that. All right. Now, before we go on and write any more code in here, what I want us to do, all right, is I want us to do two things. First, let's make sure that it's still working. So I'm going to put a hello world here. I'm going to get rid of it in just a moment, but I'm going to put a hello world right there. You can put anything you want. I'm going to save this. All right. And I'm going to view and bring up a terminal. And I'm going to do my npm start to make sure it's still working. I took some stuff out, I added some stuff, and I just want to make sure it still says hello world. And once it does, I'm cool with everything. And there it is, right there. Hello world. There's no formatting on this whatsoever. That's totally fine. All right, so far, so good. Everything appears to be working. Okay, and I'm actually going to come in here. Notice it's telling me use state has been defined, but it's never been used. Well, we will end up using it in a little bit. But I am going to come in here. I'm going to close this down. And we have to do one import or one install in here. I want you to type in npm I, and we're going to install Axios. We're going to look at what Axios is in just a moment. We have already looked at it before, but we're going to look at it again. All right, so do your npm I Axios, hit enter. Should take literally a matter of seconds. Okay, it says so clear. All right, so everything looks fine. And again, you don't have to do this, but I should be able to go into my package.json. And now I should notice that I've got Axios in here, which was not there previously. So let's talk for a couple minutes about what this is. All right. Now, when you go out to this, you want to go out to HTTPS, well, you don't even have to do that, but github.com /Axios. And I don't know why they did it like this, but they did, /Axios. All right. And this is the GitHub page for Axios, but I'm going to go down. All right. So this is where the majority of the documentation for Axios is. All right. I'm going to go down. I'm going to click here on Axios API. All right. Now, when you want to go out to a server and you want to grab information and you want to bring that information back into your client, there are different ways of doing it. You may or may not remember, but real close to the beginning of the semester, we wrote a program where we had like a text box up there and you could put a number in there and it went out to the numberapi.com. And if you put in like 1, it would come back and say 1 is the loneliest number. If you put in a 3, it would give you information about a 3, etc. The reason I'm bringing that up to you right now is you may or may not remember this, but when we wrote the program in 2 different ways. We first used what's called fetch, which for years was basically the way people did just about everything when you wanted to go out to a server and bring in information. All right, then we went back and we rewrote it using Axios. All right, because that's typically the way things are done today. This is considered a much cleaner way of doing things. All right, just so you're aware of that. All right, let's go out and get our key, and that should just about bring us to break time. So what I'd like you to do now, I'm not going to go through all the steps with you because I already have an account, but I'd like you, if you would please, to go out to open weathermap.org. And I don't know how well that resonates, so let me make it bigger so I'm sure you can see it. So there it is, and you don't need that, but I'm going to make it real big so you can see it. And that is not so much for you, just for everybody. There. So that should be big enough that anybody in this class should be able to see it, go out to it, look at it, key it in, etc. You can put in the HTTPS. We actually will need that later, but don't worry about that for right now. So it's openweathermap.org. There are other APIs that you can use to get weather-based information. All right, I've just used this one in the past and it seems to work pretty well. Now, if you don't agree with that, like I said, okay, not a problem. All right, so you'll notice I'm already logged in. You are probably not logged in. All right, so hopefully, and John, can you tell me, do you have something up here that says, do you have like a sign in? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. Yeah, I have the sign in option.
Okay, click the sign in button. And there should be like a dialog box that comes up, and then the bottom of it, it'll say something like not registered, ? Create an account. You see something like that?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, just click that link. I'm going to ask that for your username, just put in your first initial, middle initial, last name. All right, so FML Rankin, just something like that. Because that's something that even if you've got a common name, initials, etc., probably don't have somebody in there with something like that with Rankin. You can make it all lowercase. So for me, it would be JP Scott Rankin, for example. All right. I would ask you to use your Rankin email and just make sure you choose a password that you're not about to forget. All right. And then when you click all that and enter it, I don't remember because like I said, it's been a while. They may email you that, or you may have the ability to sign in right away. I don't remember how it works. All right. But what you can do is after you do that, if it does not say they're going to email you something, then you should be able to sign in. Click the sign in button up on the top again, and actually sign in with the login and password that you just made. All right,
Okay.
I'd like
I
to
just
go
finished
through.
that.
What's that?
I said I just finished
Okay.
signing up.
Good. Did it come back and tell you that it's going to email you something, or did it not?
The only email I got was that to verify my email.
Yeah, you might have to do that first before you sign in. So you might have to go out to your email, verify it, and then you should be able to sign in then and pretty much get to where I am right now. All right, so let's just go on here then. All right, let's take a look at what's up here. Now, yours is going to be different than mine because if I click on mine right here, notice one of the things that comes up is my API keys. Yours may or may not say that because you don't have any any API keys yet. You're going to get one in just a second. But if you notice, if I come here and click on that, it has two things that are up here. I have these two API keys. Now, you might look and say, well, why is this one like inactive? Except this one's going to be inactive very soon. All right. So why is it not inactive and why am I going to make it inactive? Because you should go in and always create your own API keys. All right. I mean, I watched this video that this guy did, and it wasn't on weather. It was on something else. It was that I was thinking of doing that we're not doing as a project. But he must have said 6 times at least during a half an hour video. Make sure you go out and get your own API key because I'm going to disable this one at the end of this video. But you should never count on somebody else's being able to use somebody else's information like that, is what I'm saying. So getting back here to where we just were, all right, if you do go to API like this, all right, you should be able to go out and get a key. But before we even do that, let's just take a look at, all right, let's just take a look at what's there. All right. Now, this notice it says new here, and it says one call API 3.0. And then you look and you're like 1,000 calls per day for free, 15 cents per API call over that limit. Well, this is another reason that you wouldn't want to be sharing your API key with other people. Because if you did that and somebody said, hey, there's an API key, we can all use it, and all of a sudden you had literally scores of people who were using that same key all the time, you'd probably easily get over 1,000 calls per day. All right. And I think it's actually more than 1,000. I think it's 1,440 because I think they give you one call per minute. So, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, etc. All right. But what I'd like you to do is if you've done all this, all right, is I would like you to go out and click on this subscribe button. Don't worry, you won't be subscribing for anything. Just click on the subscribe button that's right there. All right. And maybe I gave you the wrong button. Hold on a sec. Let me back up. All right, let me go back. I'm trying to do this off the top of my head. Let me grab my notes. Come back up to the top. Let's see. Yeah, click the API button. That's what I've got. I did that. That's it. I'm sorry. Okay, if you're not back here, get back here. So in other words, let's go to the home page. Let's do it the right way. So go to the home page and then click API right here. It's going to work. I just chose the wrong option. So go to API. Don't choose this one call. Go down further. Find the one that says current weather data. All right. The one that says current weather data. All right. And now click on the word subscribe. And you'll notice when you look here, there's a free tier. See that? And it says get API key. Are you following me, John? Is this where you are?
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Okay, click the button that says get API key. Now it's going to tell me, basically, it says you're already signed in. All right, but I'm hoping for you it's going to give you a key.
It says alert, you are already signed in as well.
All right, then let's do it like this. All right, then do this. From where you are right here, are you right? Does your screen look like mine right here?
It does, yeah.
All right, then click where it says API keys right here. Now yours might be totally empty. That's just fine. Do you get a screen that looks like this without keys on it?
Yeah, it looks like that, but I have a key that says default.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So click on generate. And it'll make it asks for a key name then. You can put in there, just like I've got, React Weather App or something similar to that. I recommend that you don't put any spaces, that you use hyphens. All right, and after you click it then, put that in and then you click generate again, then you should have a different key in here. It should be active and it should say React Weather App. That work?
Yeah, it worked. I have
Okay.
a key.
Okay, good. Because you will need that key in order to be able to do things. All right. Now, you don't have to do this. You can just watch if you want. It's totally fine. But I'm going to go to API here. All right. And somewhere in here, it might be back here on the current weather data. I don't remember. Under the current weather data, I'm going to click now API doc. All right. And I'm going to show you what they put in here because this is not the best way of doing this. All right. What they're saying here is when you want to make a call, you'll go https://api.openweathermap.org/data/2.5/weather question mark lat equals your latitude and lon equal your longitude. Well, I don't know about you, but let's say I wanted St. Louis, Missouri. Okay. I have absolutely no idea. For St. Louis, Missouri, I have absolutely no idea what its latitude and longitude is. So there is another way you can do this. I want to show it to you. So I'm going to copy this thing right here. I'm copying this and I'm going to copy it to my clipboard for now, just so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay. So I'll put it in here. So I'm going to put it right there. All right. This is exactly what was there. Okay. So rather than typing in the longitude and the latitude, which again, you can do. All right, you can do that. There's even things out there that you can use. All right, there's things out there that you can use, okay, that will automatically, if you put in a city, it'll give you the longitude and the latitude. But rather than doing that, typing it in this way, we're going to put in a couple things. We're going to come in here and we're going to say Q equals, and then for example, let's say we wanted Wentzville. So I'll put in Wentzville. All right, ampersand. And then we're going to say, oh, what's the other one? Units equal imperial. Now I'm going to put this, normally you would put this all on one line. I'm going to put it on multiple lines so I can explain everything that's going on in here. All right. So this is the URL right here. That's the entire URL. This is the query string. The Q equals says you can put any city in there you want. The Q says with a Q equals, you can put a city name in there. All right. Now, what about this? Well, by default, and I think it's because most of the world uses the metric system, but by default, all right, by default, it's going to use that. But saying units equal imperial says we want to use inches, feet, miles, etc. All right. And then we put our actual key in here. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to grab my key. All right. So I'm going to go back to where we just were. There's my key. I'm going to copy my key to the clipboard. Make sure the one you copy is your active one, not your inactive one. All right. And I'm going to paste that in. We don't need the curly braces or anything. So now what I'm saying is, hey, I want you to go out to the Open Weather Map API. That's this. And I have for Wentzville. I want you to return to me the weather information in an imperial format, and the ID I'm using for it, my API key, is that. So I'm going to put this all on one line. I am going to highlight it, copy it to the clipboard, and I'm going to attempt to paste it into an address bar here. Hopefully I didn't screw anything up. If I did, we'll figure out what it was. So there's the information. So it's telling us the temperature is currently just about 60 degrees, not much wind, all right, etc. Now, just to show you this, I'm going to grab the same thing. You don't have to do this, but I'm grabbing the same thing I just gave you. I'm going to paste it in again, but I'm going to remove the ampersand units equal imperial. All right. And I'm going to hit enter. And notice what it gives me for a temperature. I think that's in Kelvin. All right. I think that's the one that they used. It's not Celsius. I believe it's Kelvin, because I think that's more considered to be an international way of doing it. Other than that, and the feels like, this stuff, other than the temperature stuff, it's probably going to be pretty much the same as what we had before. All right. Now, I've got a tool here, a JSON parser. So if yours looks like this, you can go out and there's a JSON. It's a JSON, I think it's called JSON formatter. I may have told you guys to download that earlier in the semester. You can download that right from the Chrome. Just go out and type in, Google Chrome JSON formatter. So if yours looks like that, you'd rather have it look like this, because then you can show it in either way. All right. Were you able to do that, and did it work?
No, I did. I put the URL like in the bar, and it says message invalid API key. So.
All right. You're sure you used your key, and you're sure that you put ampersand app ID equals, and there's no spaces or anything in there.
Yeah. I'll retype it in.
All right. So again, I'll show you. Again, this is the one that I put in, and I'll shrink it down so I can, I'll put it all on one line so you can see everything. So that's what mine looks like. A little smaller. Little smaller. There's mine right there. And I know that's not that easy for you to probably see that, but I want you to be able to see what the heck is going on. They do have a built-in thing that if you do use what they have in their latitude, longitude, there is some link on there that I saw that you can type in literally any city and you can get the latitude and longitude. So if for some reason you'd rather run it that way, you're able to do that as well. I don't see anything that's advantageous to doing that, but to each their own, as they say. All right, did you get it to work?
No, I was not able to get it to work.
All right.
I don't know.
Then let's try doing this. Okay, if you don't mind doing this. Okay, I want to see if it's something you're typing in or not something you're typing in. So let's see. Try typing in exactly what I've got here, and I don't think it'll let you use my key, but you can try using it. So you didn't put my key in there, you put in yours, right?
Correct.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out why it wouldn't work, because I really can't think of any reason why it wouldn't. I'll tell you what, why don't you take a screenshot of it? Let's take a break because it is 10 after 1. So let's take a break till 1:20. And why don't you send me a screenshot? I'll take a look at it and see if anything looks funky on my end. I don't know if it'll help or not, John, but what you can try to do is to log out of the Open Weather API and log back in again. And then run your, so you might want to copy your query that you've got on screen right now, copy it to the clipboard. Also, I believe, now this may be why it didn't work. You have to put the HTTPS:// at the beginning.
So I do that, but whenever I hit enter, it
Right,
just
and
like
I understand it sometimes makes it go away. Okay. But like I said, try logging out and logging back in again. I have no idea why it wouldn't work, because it's saying that it doesn't like your key. And all I can think of is that even though you did go and you click to validate your email, right? You did that?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know why it wouldn't do that. I mean, we did this last year and everybody's worked. I'm not saying it's anything you did, but like I said, I try to log back out of the Open Weather API and log back in again and see if that helps. All right, and I'll be back in 5 minutes and we'll start back up. All right, John, I don't know if you're there or not. I take it for granted that you are, but I just looked up the error here. And it says, number one, it says you did not specify your key correctly. I believe you did. Number two, this could be what it is. When we did it last year, though, the keys were available immediately, but they may have put something on it where it may take a half an hour or whatever right now. I don't know. All right. So if it still doesn't work after you logged out and logged back in again, I guess you're going to have to just give it a little bit of time and wait and then try it again later. All right. I apologize for that. Like I said, I've never seen that happen before. But this is what the open weather gives for the error that you had, which was 401. Am I right then in assuming that you logged out, logged back in again, it still doesn't work?
Yeah, it didn't work.
Okay.
I even tried getting a new key and stuff too. So
Okay, that's like I said, that's all that I can think of. All right. I could give you my key, but I don't know if that you can try using it. You know, you saw my key on screen. You can try that. And I don't know if it'll allow two different IP addresses to use the same key or not. I really don't know, just because I've never tried it. But this is, I think this one's not yours, I don't think. This one's mine, I believe. Well, let me go out and grab it. So that's my key. If you want, you can try it with that. Like I said, I don't have any idea if that'll work or if it'll give you a different error message or something else. I don't know. Did that work or are you still typing it in?
that actually worked.
Okay, well then just go on and just use mine for today, okay? That's fine. And if I were you, what I'd try is when you get done, come back in an hour or so and try it with yours and see if it works then. All right? Okay, now, one thing I showed you before, and I just want to make sure, and I know you get stuff, but this is for everybody's edification. This is literally, this is weather data, all right? And what's important about this, just so you know, you can tell by the curly brace here and the curly brace here. This is a JSON object that's broken down into a bunch of different components. And the reason I'm telling you this is if I wanted the longitude and the latitude, I'd have to let it know I'm using the coordinates component. All right. Now, what you're going to see in a little bit is this icon. I'm going to show you where these things are. All right. That's actually going to be a little image that you can use and put on there. So for instance, with scattered clouds, it's the official Open Weather Map API picture for that. I'm going to show you this. The point is this. Longitude and latitudes, I'm under coordinates. This stuff that's here, I'm under weather. This stuff that's here, I'm under main. This stuff that's here, I'm under wind, etc. You get the idea as we go across in here. All right. And again, this is it in Imperial. That was it in non-Imperial. Okay, so let's go in and start writing some code and see if we can make something happen. So I'd like you to please go back into your app.js file like I am right here. All right. I'm going to hit enter here. I don't need the hello world anymore. We can remove that because we're going to start putting some actual stuff in here that matters. All right. Now, I am going to give you some stuff here, and we're actually going to start here. We're going to put in some other stuff first, our use state and whatever. But again, I'm not going to do any formatting on mine. All right. I've got mine keyed in. I didn't even run it because it might look butt ugly, and that's totally fine because I want you to style this and make this John Stark's weather app. I want Clayton to style his, and I want that to be Clayton Mayfield's weather app, etc. I want each one of these to look different, but I am going to make some suggestions that you may choose to utilize or not utilize. We'll talk about that in a bit. All right, so in our app.js, let's start typing in some code. All right, so we're going to come in here, and this is going to be data. All that stuff that was in there is data, so you might as well just call it data, and we'll have a set data. All right, now when we've done this in the past, we've always done this, equals use state, and then we've either put in this for the empty string or we put in 0. We don't want either one of those here. We want this. Remember, what we're getting returned is an empty object. I shouldn't say it's an empty, it's an object. I just showed you that it was a JSON object. So what we're saying is, hey, when we use data and set data, we're working with an object. All right. The other thing that we're going to be concerned with here is the location. And the location, that can be an empty string. Like that. Now I'm just going to pretty it up. You don't have to do this, of course. And I probably, when I save, it'll go back anyway. Let's see if I do a file save. Yep, it doesn't like it, so I'll just leave it like this. Okay, we're not done, of course, but it's a start. All right. Now, a couple things that are in here that I want you to understand. Okay. The first one, and like I said, I'm giving you this stuff. I think everything I'm giving you is going to work. And if it doesn't, we'll debug it. I'm not real worried about it. But I'm going to come in here, and the first thing I'm going to say is const URL equal, just like that. But, and you can do the same thing, I want you to go back to your URL that you just put in, the one with mine in it that works. I want you to grab everything that was in that URL. Do I still have it? Well, let me try it again then. That's fine. I removed everything, unfortunately, so I'm gonna have to go grab it back in again. That's okay. All right, I'm going to remove that latitude and longitude. And I'm going to replace it with Q equals, and then a city name. So again, I'll just put in Wentzville for now. It's okay. And then after the API key, I'm getting rid of curly braces and the words API key. And I'm going to go back here and grab my API key. All right, put it back in here. Let's run it one more time and make sure it works. This is nothing to geocode. What do we have here? Weather, question mark, equal Wentzville. Good God, Jeff. There it is. Oh, I'll just use this one. This is good. This one. There we are. All right, AC to copy. I want you to put that in that URL that you've used that has worked. All right. I want you to put that in and I should be using this. I should be using VS Code. And of course I'm not. Okay, I want you to put that in here, but in backticks. Okay. So that's going to be the URL. Now, if you look up on the screen here, hopefully you can see this. we don't want this to be Wentzville because that'd be the only place we could look up. But it's in there right now as a dummy holder. It's a dummy placeholder. So it'll work. All right, it'll work, but later we're going to want to change that. All right, hopefully what I just said made sense. Now, the other thing too, and I want you to see this. I'm going to go out there. You don't have to go here. You can, but you of course don't have to. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to Google openweatherapi.org images. All right, and where are they? Because I wish I'd saved that, but I didn't. So let's see. No, I found a really good, there we go, open weather map icons. That's what I was looking for. These are the icons, okay? So if it's a day one or a night one, you know, etc., they're not great. You could use your own, all right? When you do your version of this, when you pretty this up and add your own CSS, if you want, you can put a background image in there. You know, if you love the mountains or something, you could put that in there. But I think it's kind of nice if you're going to tell somebody that it's cloudy to also have a picture of clouds. That's just me. If you don't agree, then don't put it in. It's totally fine. But what I wanted to show you there is this is where it is. All right. So if I go out to openweathermap.org, and I believe rather than weather conditions, I think I can also just type in here, what is it, IMG/W, is that right? All right. That is actually where it is, but you have to actually give it. So if I'm going to grab one of these, I'm going to grab this. Hopefully this works. There. See the icon? So what I'm trying to tell you is if you want to be able to programmatically put the icon in that goes along with your weather conditions, this is the line that we're going to use to do it. All right, so I'm going to put another line under this one I just put in that's going to say const icon equal, and I'm going to give it this http http://openweather map.org/img/w, but then I'm going to put in there plus whatever icon we have plus .png. And I want to explain to you exactly what that means in a second. And now that I'm looking at it, I don't think we need back ticks here. I think we can just have regular front ticks. We're not, whoops, not there. We're not doing any interpolation here. So I think this can just be a single quote here and here and here and here. All right. So, you know, you look at that, and again, you don't have to use this if you don't want to, but this is what I'm trying to show you right here. Okay. So when we look here on the stuff that we ran off before, and I may have said this before, I may not have, but that's the icon. So we're going to be grabbing that from weather. All right. So if you look at the path that I just gave you there, it's openweathermap.org and it's IMG. I don't remember. I may have to change this around a little bit to get it to work. I don't know. I'm not worried about it though. All right. All I'm saying here is I want to be able to grab the URL, which we are going to programmatically change this to be what we want it to be. And we're going to programmatically change this to what we want it to be. All right. So that's a start. All right. Now, the key part of this program is, the key part, right now, you know that in here, we got nothing, right? We removed everything. We're not returning anything. This is empty. It said hello world before. All right. So we're going to programmatically put some stuff in there. But the other thing that we're going to put in there is we're going to put in a text box and a button. And in that text box, we want to be able to enter the name of the city. And then for the button, it'll say something like search on it. And boom, when you click that button, what it should do then is it should go out to the Open Weather API and take whatever city we put in, replace this with that city, and give us back our information. So hopefully everything I just said made at least some sense. But when we do that, we have to tell it programmatically what it should do. So we'll just call it location search because it's our location and we're about to do a search. All right. And you may or may not remember this from the other day, but we use that E thing in there for our event. So we're going to put that in. Again, we're going to go over all this in just a minute. It's only 4 or 5 lines. So if E.key equal enter Axios dot get, and we want that URL that we just put in there, dot then response. Again, we're going to go over all of this in just a second. And we want to do our set data to response dot data. And we can even try to console log it. All right, so let's see. Console.log response.data. All right, now looking here, that's data, but it doesn't like something. So what doesn't it like here? Axios if equals enter Axios.get weather URL.then response. What is wrong here? It's not going to run because it's giving us an error right here, but that's what I put in earlier. Const search. Well, I'll have to check on this. I don't know what the error is there, but when we take our next break, I'll go check on this and see if I can figure out what the problem is. Okay. All right. Man, oh man. Yeah, what is it? All right, I'm just going to come down here and start writing this. Okay. All right. Now, this is the part in here that we're doing right now that I am going to do no formatting on, but it is the part that I will want you to do formatting on. So again, I'm not going to I'm not going to pretty this up at all. I'm just going to be more concerned with making it functional than I am with making it pretty. All right. So this is how I did it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to have a wrapper. All right, so I did a div with a class equal wrapper. And that basically is going to be what wraps or kind of holds everything that we put in here. All right. Then I'm going to come in and I'm going to have my search text box. So there's going to be a couple things that I'm going to put in here right now. So I'm going to say another div, class name, and that should be class name, not class. All right. Class name equal, and again, I just called mine search box. All right. And it's pretty simple, be an input. All right. Value equal, here's a key thing. The value that we put in there is going to be this. So in other words, it's going to be the location that we enter that we're sending out there to Axios. So that's location and a type equal text. All right, I may run out of room, so I'll just go on to a new line here. You don't have to. And I'm going to say placeholder equal, and I'll just say enter location here. Something like that. You can enter something else if you want to. On key press, all right, equals, it's going to be this. We want it to run this location search thing when we put in something. So on key press equals, and again, in curly braces, location search. All right. And when we make a change, we want that change to be reflected. So on change equals E, set location to E dot target dot value. Right? We're not done yet, but that's what we've got done so far. Okay? All right. Then let's go on. Now, you can set this up any way you want. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I watched a few videos this weekend. People do it all over the place. Some people put everything together. Some people put some stuff in one area of the screen and some other stuff in another area. It doesn't really matter that much. But with what we're doing right now with what we're doing, this is just, I'm again not doing any formatting. This is just the way that I'm going to do it. All right. Okay. So I'm going to put another div in here and I'm going to give it a class name. I'm just going to call it weather info because this is going to be where I'm going to put all of my information. All right. So I'm putting everything in here. All right. And I'm going to put everything in its own div. That way, if I want to, I can put it in paragraphs. I can put it in H2 or H3 tags or whatever you want to put it in. It's going to be up to you. All right. So let's start. Well, it'd be kind of nice to start with a location. So we'll put in here a div with a class name that's equal to location. All right. And I'm just going to put it into a paragraph. You can put it again into whatever you want. But I'm going to put in here data dot location. In fact, I think it's name. Let's look. So we're the one that we looked at before. Somewhere in here, there it is. This is what we're grabbing right here. Okay, that's the name. All right, so that's the first thing that we've got in here is the name. We need to end our curly. That's why we're getting an error. All right, so that's the location. Well, then the next thing that would be nice would be the temperature. So I'm going to have a div and I'll say class name equals temperature. All right. And we can just, again, I'm just going to keep using P tags. Okay. And we can say here data dot main dot temp. And that has to be in curly braces, Jeffrey. Where did I get that from? All right, let's look. So I'm going to just keep walking back and forth with this thing. So where's the temperature? There it is. Let's grab the other one. In fact, I'm going to close this one. There. All right. So it was under weather and it was under main. There's the temperature. So you can put anything in here you want. You can put a feels like, you can add the humidity, you can add the wind speed, etc. And I'm going to put a few of those in there just so you've seen them. Okay? But again, when you are taking this over and making it yours, I want you to put in there whatever you want to put in there. All right? Now, the other thing too is you probably want to come in and after you've got the temperature, you want to say something like degrees Fahrenheit. Okay? There is something you can do too. Let me look quickly. How to get the degree symbol on your keyboard. What keys do I use to get a degree symbol? Position the cursor where you want it to go. Do a control plus shift plus 2 and press the space bar. So let me see how that works. So control plus shift. Was it 2 or F2? Boy, oh boy. Plus 2 at the top of the keyboard. So it is F2. So let me try that again. Control shift F2. We want it to go actually right here. Control shift F2. All right, guys. So what happened, just so you know, is I was trying to put a degree symbol in here. When I tried to put in a degree symbol, it was Control Shift F2. When I did the Control Shift F2, I don't know if it has something to do with Teams or not, but it totally not only kicked me out of Teams, it kicked me off my network. All right. And it wouldn't let me back on. It wouldn't let me do anything. So Clayton and John, can you guys hear me right now?
Yeah, Mr. Scott, I think you may have put your laptop into airplane mode.
No, it was. Yeah, and
Okay.
I see it down here. And I've tried changing it twice. It says I've got my Spectrum here, and it supposedly is letting me, it won't let me in.
Huh.
See, it still says I'm in airplane mode down here, even though up here it says that I'm connected. So I don't know. I don't know if I lost what I've done so far or what, but it, like I said, it was pretty weird what happened. I should have known better than anytime I hit a function key when I'm in Teams, it has a tendency to wreak havoc. All right. But let me recap what I've done. All right. So we came in here. Well, the first thing we did, and Clayton, I'm not sure when you exactly joined us. So
I
if you've
joined at
got
12:08.
oh, okay. So you do have you got your API key and everything, correct?
I got your API key. So I
Okay.
copied yours when you had it up.
Okay. All right. All right. So we did come in here and we started to put our stuff in. This is a functional app. So we've got data and set data. We set use state to be an empty object. So that's going to be its default value. Then we've got our location in here. This is what we are going to end up putting in just a couple minutes, hopefully, so that we can put that into the equivalent of our form. It's not going to even be a form. It's just going to be in that location is what we're going to put into that input box. All right. And when we put that in there and hit enter, basically that should be setting our location for us, is what we're saying. The URL that's in here, again, this is temporary. We want to replace this. We don't want it to say Wentzville, of course. No, we don't want it to say that. All right. We're actually going to want to have that so that what's put in there is going to be the actual location. All right. We can even change that right now. We don't want the word Wentzville in there. We want a $sign and then location. Oops, in lowercase, not upper. Location. That's what we're going to want to put in there. All right. And our units equal imperial and our API key. All right. This I still have to check on. It looks like it didn't like my path, but I'm not worried about that. We can fix it. All right. Then we came in here, and I know I wrote this correctly, but I'm not sure why it's giving me an error right now, but it is. And I will go back and check on it when we take our next break. All right. But when we come in here, all right. And this is our call to Axio. So this is what is supposedly handling everything. All right. When we go and make our call out to our external API. Okay. All right. So it's a get, it's the URL, it's a then and a response. That is the correct syntax. So I'm not sure what the problem is. All right. And then we're coming in here, and now again, we are coming in. Let me move this down a bit. And we are writing the equivalent, at least, of our interface. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to do this. We're going to get this up and running. It won't look pretty because I'm not doing anything to make this my own. I'm just putting the information in there so you can print the information out. Shouldn't be an S in there either. All right. So right now, all we have in there, okay, is a bunch of divs. And in here, this should be in here. What we should have in here is a text box. Now we could put a button in there too, instead of using the on key press and on change event. So there's different ways that this could be done. Again, as I mentioned, you could separate your your interface into areas. If you decide you want some kind of a background image, use that. I don't really care. I'm not doing any of that stuff. All right, so we've come in and so far we put in the name, that's our location, and we put in the temperature. This is where I came in, and right here, I tried doing the Control Shift F2. All right, I should have just left it the way it was, where it says degrees Fahrenheit. All right. All right. Now, the problem with this is we want to make sure when we're doing this stuff, what we want to make sure is, hey, if as we do this, there isn't anything in there, or if we're between, so we put in something and now we remove the city, we don't want that stuff that's in there to be showing anymore, for lack of better words. So really, I think we can do a little cleanup on this. All right. What I mean is, I think we can do
Mr.
this.
Scott,
go ahead.
You're not sharing your screen right at the moment.
All right. Thank you. All right. You have it now?
Yes.
Okay. So right now, this is always going to be printing something, but we don't necessarily always want it to be printing something. And if you say, I don't know what you mean, well, you're going to in just a minute. All right. I'm going to change this. So this data.main, okay, in here, I'm not going to do it like this. I'm going to rewrite this. I could do it like this, but I don't want to. So let me show you what I'm going to redo. It's going to look almost the same. All right. But I'm going to put in here data.main, and we're going to use the question mark : operator. And I'm going to say if there is something in there, then what we want is our data.main.temp, just like that. All right. And if there is nothing in there, all right, so if it's empty, okay, so if there's nothing in there, we'll just have it be null. All right. And I'm going to do that for most of the ones in here. I may even go back and change the other ones. I want to see what it looks like when we get all finished. All right. So now I've got the location and I've got the temperature. Let's put a couple more things in here. And again, what you put in is going to be what you put in. What I mean is, again, you're going to take charge of this and make it look the way you want it to look. Gosh. I'm going to do the same kind of thing in here. Right? All right. Finally, we'll just put in one more. Let's put in the humidity. All right. And there's other stuff we can put in. You can put in clouds, etc. I'm going to see, and this may or may not work, but I'm going to also try to put in the icon. And where was that? Same place. Just under weather. I think it'll be in data.icon. I'm gonna have to check on all these, so. And again, we can do the same kind of thing. In fact, let's just do it the same way we did it here. Okay. All right. There's other stuff. I think there's a description that you can put in there, and there's some other stuff too. So what you're going to be responsible for doing once we get this to work, all right, is you're going to have to go back in then and go into, let me save this. But you're going to have to go back in to the app.css file. And right now, remember how this thing is set up. I would recommend you start by making that a little a. All right, and getting rid of all this stuff. We don't have that logo anymore, etc. Got all that. All right. So my hope is that you're going to take this over, like I said, pretty it up, do whatever has to be done to it, etc. All right. Now, I've got this running on two machines right now. One you see and one that you don't see, but the one that you don't see is giving me errors. So I'm going to have to go back and fix what we're working on now. All right. I don't want to go on until I get this done. Now, I do want you to do one thing though. I would like you both to do this, and I want everybody who's watching this on tape to do this. And that is, if you would please, up in your address bar, I'm going to close a bunch of this stuff because I got way too much junk open. All right. Way up in your address bar, I'd like you to go out to omdbapi.com. I'll say it again. It's right there. One word, omdbapi.com. You can make it all lowercase. If it looks like this, you're there. All right. This is the Open Movie Database API. Hopefully within a little bit of time tomorrow, we can get this other one we just been working on fixed, and we're going to start on another one. It's going to be a little bit more complex. Now, what I want you to do is click on where it says API key right there. All right. And then I want you to choose the one that says free 1,000 daily limit. So click there. And it should come up then and look like this. You can put in, I would recommend you use your Rankin email. If you don't want to, then don't. You can use a Gmail or whatever you want. For the name, I would just write down, creating an Android app. I'm saying Android, creating a React app, something like that. Now, and I don't know if you heard this part, Clayton, because I don't remember when I said it, but yesterday or Friday when I went out and applied for a key, I applied for it at about, it must have been about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, something like that. And it said right there, if you don't hear this, hear back within an hour, this is the guy you contact, Mr. Brian Fritz. Well, I didn't look at it anymore until I got home that night. It was at 9 at night. I still hadn't gotten it. So I sent him an email just to show you what I sent him. Let's see. So I said, here, hello, Brian Fritz. Yesterday afternoon around 2 o'clock, I applied for an OMDB API key. I am still waiting for said key. All right. I am emailing you now per the instructions on the website. All right. And his email address is right here. I'm going to put this up here so you can see it. in case you have to email him. So I'm going to put it up there. It's right there, bfritz@fadingsignal.com. So what I'd like you to do is right now, fill out the rest of that dialogue so that you can get your API key. Check back in like a couple hours, and if at that time he has not yet provided you with an API key, send him an email just saying, hey, in fact, I even told him, just so you see this, after he sent it to me, he said, you could try using mine otherwise, I don't care. Mine is 2C2E69AO. All right, but after I sent him that, he just said, here's your key. Sorry about that. The new service I'm using is having some issues. That must be this fading signal. All right. So I wrote back and I said, thank you so much. I will have 6 students, each applying for their own key on Monday afternoon. They will begin using the keys on Tuesday. All right. Hoping that he will remember that. So if you want to tell him, that you're a Rankin student, one of Jeff Scott's students, hopefully he'll send you a key out right away. All right. So the one that we're going to write, I think I've shown it to you already, but I'm not sure. So I am going to show it to you again. All right. Looks a lot nicer because I've already got mine is it there? It's not there. I got to clean this thing up. I don't know if this is the one or not. I've did it and redid it a bunch of times. So let's see if this is it or not. This isn't mine. I'm not going to give you that one. Oh. I can't find it right now, and I don't know why, but it's a decent looking app. All right. And I actually put I went into the CSS so it would look nicer. And the reason for that is I showed it this weekend at the open house. All right. Okay. So what I'd like you to do is apply for that key, and we're going to pick it up here tomorrow. I'm sorry I've got this error. I want to debug it because I want to give you the correct code. All right. So I will talk to you tomorrow afternoon at 12:05.